The chandeliers glittered like 1,000 tiny suns, casting fractured light across the polished marble floors of the Four Seasons Ballroom in Seattle. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my champagne flute untouched, the bubbles rising and popping like my nerves. The air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne, floral centerpieces, and ambition. This was the annual Tech Innovators Gala, the kind of event where Silicon Valley wannabes and Seattle's startup elite rubbed elbows, chasing deals and headlines. I should have felt at home. After all, I'd built Cascade Labs, our tech startup, from a garage codebase to a name on every venture capitalist's lips. But tonight, something felt wrong. My black gown clung to me like a second skin, elegant but heavy, mirroring the weight in my chest. Ethan had been gone for 3 weeks, and the grief was still a raw, jagged thing, slicing through me with every breath. I scanned the room, my eyes catching on Laura, my cousin and co-founder, holding court near the stage. Her platinum blonde hair gleamed under the lights, her scarlet dress a bold slash against the sea of navy suits and muted cocktail attire. She laughed, tossing her head back, her diamond earrings catching the light. The tech bros around her hung on every word, their eyes gleaming with the promise of her next big pitch. Laura had always been the face of Cascade Labs, charismatic, ruthless, the kind of woman who could sell ice to a glacier. I was the coder, the quiet one, who turned her grand visions into reality. Together, we'd been unstoppable, or so I'd thought. "Abigail Carter," a voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to see a young woman in a sleek blazer, her badge marking her as press. "I'm with TechCrunch. Can I get a quote on Cascade Labs' new AI platform?" I forced a smile, the kind I'd practiced in the mirror since Ethan's funeral. "We're excited about the potential," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my throat. "It's a game changer for data analytics." She nodded, scribbling in her notepad, but before I could say more, a ripple went through the crowd. Heads turned toward the stage, where the MC tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Laura Bennett, co-founder of Cascade Labs." The applause was thunderous, and I clapped along, my hands mechanical. Laura glided to the podium, her smile radiant, predatory. She leaned into the mic, her voice smooth as velvet. "Thank you, Seattle, for this incredible night. Cascade Labs is here to redefine the future, but tonight I have an announcement that will shake things up." My stomach twisted. We hadn't discussed any announcements. I'd been out of the office for weeks, burying Ethan, sorting through his medical bills and trying to keep my world from collapsing. Laura had promised to handle things, to give me space. I trusted her. "Masochist Labs is entering a new era," Laura continued, her eyes sweeping the room but never landing on me. "To stay competitive, we've made tough decisions. Effective immediately, Abigail Carter is no longer with the company." The room went silent, the kind of silence that swallows sound and breath. My champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Shards glinted like broken promises, and every eye in the room turned to me. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might crack my ribs. Laura's voice cut through the haze, cold and deliberate. "Abigail's been distracted, grieving too long, I'm afraid. At Cascade Labs, we don't pay people to wallow." A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of shock and cruel amusement. My face burned, not from embarrassment but from rage, a white-hot fury I hadn't felt since Ethan's doctors told me there was nothing more they could do. Laura smirked from the stage, her red lips curling like a predator savoring its kill. She'd planned this, orchestrated this public execution to cement her control. I wanted to scream, to storm the stage and tear that microphone from her hands, but my legs wouldn't move. I was a statue, carved from grief and betrayal. A hand touched my arm and I flinched. It was Claire, our HR manager, her face a mask of forced sympathy. "Abigail, let's step outside," she whispered, guiding me toward a side exit. I let her lead me, my heels clicking hollowly against the floor. The Gala's noise faded behind us, replaced by the hum of the city outside. Rain streaked the windows, Seattle's eternal drizzle blurring the world. In a quiet alcove, Claire handed me a white envelope. "Your severance package," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Standard terms. Please clear your office by tomorrow." I stared at the envelope, my fingers numb. "This is a mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I built this company. Laura can't just—" "It's done, Abigail," Claire interrupted, her tone final. "The board approved it this afternoon. I'm sorry." Sorry, the word was a slap, as hollow as the promises Laura had made when we started Cascade Labs 5 years ago. We were family, she'd said, partners, equals. Now I was nothing but a liability, discarded like obsolete code. I don't remember driving home. The rain-slicked streets of Capitol Hill blurred past, the wipers on my Subaru thumping like a heartbeat. My apartment was dark, the kind of dark that presses against your skin. I dropped the envelope on the kitchen counter and sank onto the couch, still in my gown. Ethan's absence was everywhere. The empty side of the bed, the coffee mug he'd always left half full, the silence where his laughter used to be. I buried my face in my hands, trying to breathe, but the air felt too thick, too heavy. That's when I remembered my office. If Laura wanted me gone by tomorrow, she'd already have someone clearing my desk, erasing every trace of me. I couldn't let her have that victory. I grabbed my keys and headed back downtown, the city's neon lights smearing through the rain. Cascade Labs' office was in a sleek glass tower, its lobby deserted at midnight. The security guard, an older man named Frank, gave me a pitying look as he waved me through. "Rough night, Ms. Carter?" he asked. "You have no idea," I muttered, stepping into the elevator. The ride to the 12th floor felt endless, the hum of the cables amplifying my dread. When the doors opened, the office was dark except for the glow of a few monitors left on. My desk was in the corner, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. I flicked on my lamp, its soft light revealing chaos. My aunt's last Christmas party. My notebooks, filled with early algorithms for our AI platform, were missing. Even my favorite pen, a gift from Ethan, was nowhere to be found. I sank into my chair, my hands trembling. Laura hadn't just fired me, she was rewriting history, erasing my legacy. I opened my desk drawer, hoping to salvage something, anything. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper tucked beneath the keyboard tray, my name scrawled in Ethan's familiar handwriting. My breath caught. Ethan had been in this office the week before his surgery, dropping off lunch when I was pulling an all-nighter. He must have left this then, knowing he might not come back. I unfolded the letter, my fingers shaking. The paper was worn, as if he'd held it too long before sealing it. His words were in blue ink, steady despite the cancer eating him away. "Abigail, my spark, if you're reading this, I'm either recovering or I didn't make it. Either way, I need you to know something. Laura's not who you think. She's been skimming funds, using your name to cover her tracks. Check the safe deposit box at First Interstate, keys in my old jacket. Don't let her bury you. You're the heart of Cascade Labs, not her. I love you, always. Ethan." I read it again, then a third time, the words searing into me. Laura wasn't just after control. She was a thief, a liar, using my grief as a weapon. The safe deposit box. I hadn't touched Ethan's jacket since he died, couldn't bear to, but now it was a lifeline. I folded the letter and slipped it into my purse, my resolve hardening. Laura thought she'd broken me, but she'd only woken me up. As I stood to leave, a flicker of movement caught my eye. The office door, which I'd left ajar, was now closed. I froze, my pulse racing. The building was supposed to be empty. I grabbed my phone, ready to call Frank, but the screen was dark, dead, despite a full charge an hour ago. A soft click echoed from the hallway, like a light switch flipping off. The office plunged into darkness, the only light coming from the city outside. "Who's there?" I called, my voice sharper than I felt. No answer, just the faint scuff of footsteps on the carpet. I backed toward the window, my hand fumbling for something to defend myself. My fingers closed around a stapler. Pathetic, but better than nothing. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment there was only silence. Then a low chuckle, male, unfamiliar, from the other side of my desk. "You should have stayed home, Abigail," the voice said, low and taunting. "Laura doesn't like loose ends." I bolted for the door, my heart in my throat. The handle turned, but it was locked from the outside. Panic surged, but I forced it down. I'd built this office, knew every inch of it. There was a fire exit behind the conference room. I ducked low, weaving through cubicles, the stapler still clutched in my hand. The footsteps followed, unhurried, confident. I reached the conference room, my fingers brushing the exit's push bar when a hand grabbed my shoulder, yanking me back. I swung the stapler blindly, connecting with something solid, a grunt of pain, and the grip loosened. I shoved the door open, stumbling into the stairwell. The fire alarm blared, its shriek piercing the night. I ran, my heels slipping on the concrete steps, my breath ragged. 12 floors felt like a marathon, but I didn't stop until I burst into the lobby, where Frank was already on his radio, his face pale. "Miss Carter, what the hell?" he started, but I cut him off. "Someone's up there," I gasped. "They locked me in." Frank called for backup, but I didn't wait. I ran to my car, locking the doors as soon as I was inside. My hands shook as I started the engine, Ethan's letter burning a hole in my purse. Laura wasn't just playing dirty. She was dangerous, and I was done playing her game. The next morning I woke to a pounding headache and a phone buzzing with notifications. My email was locked, my cloud access revoked. Someone, Laura no doubt, had tried to erase me digitally. I drove to Ethan's bank, the First Interstate branch downtown, clutching the key I'd found in his jacket pocket. The safe deposit box held a USB drive and a folder of documents, each one a dagger aimed at Laura's empire. Bank statements, transfer logs, emails, all showing funds siphoned through my employee ID to a fake consulting firm, Peak Pulse Solutions. The firm's P.O. box was registered to Laura's fiancé, Derek. I sat in my car, the documents spread across the passenger seat, my anger growing with every page. Laura hadn't just betrayed me. She'd used my name to launder her greed, all while I was grieving Ethan. The USB drive held more. Audio files of Laura bragging about cleaning house and using Abigail's ID to keep things tidy. Her voice, smug and careless, made my blood boil. I emailed my aunt's lawyer, Miss Harper, attaching scans of the documents. "Please confirm my ownership stake in Cascade Labs," I wrote. "I suspect unauthorized changes." I hit send, my hands steady for the first time in weeks, but as I pulled out of the bank's parking lot, a black SUV swerved in front of me, forcing me to slam on the brakes. The driver, a man in a hoodie, stared at me through tinted windows before speeding off. My heart raced, Ethan's warning echoing in my mind. "Don't let her bury you." Back at my apartment, I fortified myself with coffee and determination. I wasn't just fighting for my job. I was fighting for my life, for Ethan's legacy, for the truth. Laura thought she'd silenced me, but she'd only lit a fuse. I opened my laptop, ready to dig deeper, when a new email pinged. It was from an anonymous sender, no subject line, just 4 words. "You're not safe, Abigail." I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a warning. Laura's game was bigger than I'd imagined, and I was in the crosshairs. But I wasn't running. Not anymore. The rain hadn't stopped, a relentless Seattle drizzle that smeared the city lights into a kaleidoscope of neon and shadow. I sat in my apartment, the anonymous email's words burning into my retinas. "You're not safe, Abigail." My laptop screen glowed in the dark, casting harsh light across the scattered documents from Ethan's safe deposit box, bank statements, forged transfer logs, Laura's smug voice on audio files. They were a map of her betrayal, but also a minefield. Every piece of evidence I held was a weapon, and Laura knew it. The black SUV from the bank parking lot, the stranger in the office last night, they weren't coincidences. She was closing in, and I was running out of time. Pushed back from the kitchen table, my coffee cold and bitter. The clock read 1:37 IEM, but sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check your car." My heart lurched. I grabbed my coat, slipped Ethan's letter into my pocket for courage, and headed to the underground garage. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting long shadows across the concrete. My Subaru sat alone in its spot, unassuming except for the driver's side window, smashed, glass glittering like frost on the pavement. A brick lay on the seat, wrapped in a note scrawled in black marker. "Stop digging or you're next." I backed away, my breath shallow, scanning the garage. The hum of a distant car engine echoed, but no one appeared. I snapped a photo of the note, my hands trembling, and called the police. By the time they arrived, the garage felt like a tomb, cold and claustrophobic. The officer, a tired man named Ruiz, took my statement but offered little comfort. "Could be kids," he said, scribbling in his notepad, "or someone with a grudge. Got any enemies, Miss Carter?" I almost laughed. Enemies? My cousin, my co-fender, the woman I'd trusted like a sister? She was more than an enemy. She was a predator, and I was her prey. But I didn't say that. Instead, I nodded, gave him Laura's name, and watched him drive off into the rain. Back in my apartment, I barricaded the door with a chair and sank onto the couch, the bricks note replaying in my mind. "Stop digging." I couldn't. Ethan's words were my anchor. "You're the heart of Cascade Labs, not her." Morning came too soon, gray light filtering through my blinds. My phone was a war zone of notifications, missed calls from Ruth, my mentor, and a voicemail from Miss Harper, my aunt's lawyer. I played it, her voice crisp and urgent. "Abigail, I've reviewed the documents. There's evidence of tampering with Cascade Labs' ownership records. Meet me at my office today, 2 p.m. Bring everything you have." I exhaled, a spark of hope igniting, but hope was dangerous and I knew it. I drove to Ruth's house first, needing her steady presence before facing Harper. Ruth lived in a modest craftsman in Queen Anne, its porch sagging under the weight of potted ferns. She opened the door before I knocked, her silver hair pulled back, her eyes sharp with worry. "You look like hell," she said, ushering me inside. The smell of chamomile tea and old books enveloped me, a fleeting comfort. I told her everything. The gala, the office ambush, the car window, the note. Ruth listened, her hands clasped tight, her face hardening with every word. When I finished, she stood and retrieved a small envelope from her dining room table. "Ethan gave this to me," she said, her voice low, "the day before his surgery. He said to give it to you if things went south." I took the envelope, my fingers brushing the familiar curve of Ethan's handwriting. Inside was a single page, his words raw and urgent. "Abigail, you're stronger than you know. Laura's been using your ID for years. Check the Q3 financials from 2023. She blocked me from telling you in the hospital. She's dangerous. Ruth knows more. Trust her." Ethan, my throat tightened. Laura hadn't just betrayed me. She'd kept Ethan from me in his final days, labeling me unstable, to silence us both. Ruth sat across from me, her eyes glistening. "He came to me that week," she said. "Weak, barely standing, but determined. He said Laura was rerouting funds through your employee ID to a shell company, Peak Pulse Solutions." "He found proof, but couldn't get to you?" "She had hospital staff block your calls, told them you were erratic." I gripped the letter, my nails digging into my palms. "She let him die, thinking I didn't care," I whispered. The rage was back, a molten thing coursing through me. Ruth reached for my hand, her grip firm. "You need to fight, Abigail. Not just for you, for him." Harper's office was in a sleek downtown tower, its lobby all glass and chrome. I arrived early, Ethan's letters and the safe deposit box documents in a locked briefcase. The elevator ride was suffocating, my reflection in the mirrored walls showing a woman I barely recognized, pale, hollow-eyed but resolute. Harper greeted me with a firm handshake, her gray suit impeccable, her expression unreadable. "This is serious," she said, gesturing to a conference table. "The ownership documents were altered 6 months ago, removing your name as co-founder. Laura's signature is on the filings, but yours is forged." I spread the documents before her. Bank transfers, emails, audio files. Harper's eyes narrowed as she listened to Laura's voice on the USB drive, mocking my grief while directing her fiancé Derek to use Abigail's ID for the next batch. When the audio ended, Harper leaned back, her fingers steepled. "This is fraud, Abigail. Embezzlement, possibly money laundering. We can go to the authorities, but Laura's connected. She won't go down quietly." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A security alert from my apartment's smart lock. Someone had tried to access my door. I showed Harper the notification, my pulse racing. "She's not waiting," I said. Harper nodded, her voice calm but urgent. "Get somewhere safe. I'll file an emergency injunction to freeze Cascade Labs accounts. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow, 9 a.m. I left her office, the briefcase clutched tight, my eyes scanning the street. The black SUV was there, parked across from the building, its engine idling. I ducked into a coffee shop, my heart pounding, and called Ryan, the junior coder who'd hinted at Laura's schemes. He answered on the second ring, his voice nervous. "Abigail, I heard about the gala. You okay?" "No," I said, keeping my voice low. "I need your help. Can you meet me at the Fremont Library?" "Now?" Ryan hesitated, then agreed. I took a circuitous route, weaving through alleys and side streets, the SUV's shadow lingering in my mind. The library was quiet, its stacks a maze of safety. Ryan arrived, his hoodie damp from the rain, a backpack slung over one shoulder. "I found more," he said, pulling out a flash drive. "Transaction logs from last year. Laura's been routing bonuses through your ID to Peak Pulse, then to a P.O. box in Marin County. It's registered to Derek's brother." I took the drive, my hands steady, despite the fear clawing at me. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Ryan shifted, his eyes darting to the windows. "Because you stood up to her. No one else did. But Abigail, she's got people watching you. I saw Derek at the office yesterday talking to some guy who didn't look like staff." I nodded, the weight of his words settling in. "Keep this quiet," I said. "And watch your back." Ryan left, and I stayed in the library, uploading the new data to a secure cloud server. But as I stepped outside, the world tilted. A sharp pain seared my neck, and my vision blurred. I stumbled, catching myself against a lamp post, my fingers brushing a tiny dart embedded in my skin. Footsteps approached, fast and heavy, but a passerby's shout sent them retreating. I yanked the dart free, my head spinning, and flagged a cab to the ER. The hospital was a blur of antiseptic and fluorescent lights. The dart contained a sedative, non-lethal but meant to incapacitate. The doctor, a weary woman named Patel, frowned at my story. "You need to report this," she said. I did, but the police were skeptical, filing it as possible assault with no suspects. Discharged at dawn, I checked into a cheap motel under a false name, my briefcase never leaving my side. Sleep came in fragments, haunted by Ethan's voice and Laura's smirk. The courthouse was a fortress of stone and glass, its halls echoing with footsteps and hushed arguments. Harper met me at the entrance, her face grim. "The injunction's filed," she said. "But Laura's lawyer is pushing back, claiming you're unstable, grieving, vengeful." I clenched my jaw, Ethan's letter in my pocket, a reminder of why I was here. We entered the hearing room, where Laura sat at the defendant's table, her navy blazer sharp, her expression serene. She glanced at me, her lips curling into that predatory smile, and I felt the room shrink. The judge, a stern man named Ellison, reviewed the evidence. Forged signatures, transaction logs, audio files. Harper presented Ryan's flash drive, showing transfers through my ID during my medical leave in Portland when I was at Ethan's bedside. Laura's lawyer, a slick man named Vaughn, countered with a barrage of lies. I was erratic, careless with my login, bitter about my firing. "Miss Carter's fabricating a conspiracy to salvage her reputation," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. I leaned forward, my voice cutting through the room. "She said I wasn't paid to wallow," I told the judge, my eyes locked on Laura. "She used my grief to steal from the company I built. She used my name to hide her crimes." The room stilled, the weight of my words palpable. Harper played the audio, Laura's voice mocking my bereavement leave, laughing about dead partners making great cover stories. The judge's face hardened, and Laura's composure cracked, her fingers curling on the table. But as the hearing adjourned, chaos erupted. A fire alarm blared, and the courtroom evacuated. In the crowded hallway, someone shoved me hard, sending me crashing into a wall. My briefcase slipped from my grip, and a man in a black jacket snatched it, vanishing into the throng. I screamed, pushing through the crowd, but he was gone. Harper found me, her face pale. "We'll file for a replacement," she said, but I knew the damage was done. The original documents were my leverage, and Laura had struck again. I returned to the motel, my body bruised, my spirit battered. But Ryan's words echoed. "You stood up to her." I opened my laptop, accessing the cloud backups I'd made at the library. The data was intact. Transaction logs, audio, emails. I sent copies to Harper and a trusted journalist at the Seattle Times, anonymizing my name. If Laura wanted a war, I'd fight on my terms. That night I dreamed of Ethan, his hand brushing my cheek, his voice soft. "You're the spark, Abigail." I woke with renewed fire. I drove to Cascade Labs, badge or no badge, determined to confront Laura. The office was a hive of activity, staff whispering about the injunction. Laura was in her glass-walled office on the phone, her face tight with anger. I didn't knock. I stormed in, slamming the door behind me. "You knew," I said, my voice low and lethal. "You knew Ethan was dying, and you kept me from him. You used my name, my work, my grief. For what? Money? Power?" Laura ended her call, her eyes narrowing. "You're delusional, Abigail," she said, but her voice wavered. I pulled out my phone, playing Ruth's recording. "Laura told me herself. She was done letting you run things." Laura's face paled, her hands gripping the desk. "You can't prove anything," she hissed. I smiled, cold and final. "I already have." I left her office, my head high, as whispers followed me through the bullpen. In the break room I faced the staff, my voice clear. "I was fired for grieving," I said. "Laura used my name to steal from us all. I'm done being silent." A gasp rippled through the room, and a young coder, Mia, met my eyes, nodding in solidarity. The next day, I met Mia at a coastal park in San Francisco, where I'd organized a quiet memorial for Ethan. 5 of us gathered under redwoods, sharing stories and relics, a worn journal, a cracked phone case, Ethan's favorite scarf. Mia arrived last, nervous, holding a framed USB drive. "I cleaned it up," she said, handing it to me. "It's Ethan's final code for the AI platform. I thought you'd want it, a brass plate read. You left something that mattered." My throat tightened, tears welling for the first time in weeks. At a nearby cafe, Mia shared her story. "Watching you face Laura inspired me," she said. "My manager was gaslighting me, stealing my work. I filed a complaint because of you." I listened, Ethan's words echoing, "Don't let them bury your name." Mia's courage was my mirror, reflecting the strength I'd doubted. A week later, the Seattle Times ran a story. Cascade Labs executive ousted amid fraud allegations. Laura was gone, the board implementing new oversight policies. I didn't need my name in the headlines. I needed change. I started a nonprofit, Spark Vanguard, to protect workers from corporate betrayal, channeling Ethan's legacy into purpose. That evening, I stood on my balcony, tea in hand, watching the city glow. The wind chime Ethan and I bought on our last trip jingled softly. I whispered, "I didn't forget," and felt peace. Not closure, but enough. Laura's shadows were gone, and I was no longer silent.